friends. I'm Pastor Kelly. I am here with week 8 of our Bible study, We Make the Road by Walking with Brian McLaren. This story is a really fun one, and then not so much, right? So we are reading in chapter 8. Go ahead and pause if you need to read chapter 8. Okay, and we're also reading several chapters of Genesis. We're reading Genesis chapter 32, verse 22 until chapter 33, verse 11, and also Genesis chapter 50, verses 15 to 21. These chapters in Genesis provide a story of sibling rivalry. Sibling rivalry happens all throughout Genesis. Adam and Eve's first children, Cain and Abel, they fight and one kills the other one. And then we go on and we have more sibling rivalries. Ishmael and Isaac, then Isaac's son Jacob and Esau. Jacob's sons, 10 against 1, 10 of them all against Joseph. Over and over again in this Bible story, these brothers seem to really be arguing and fighting with one another. And because they see their dads and uncles fighting, they keep doing it. It's really quite annoying. The story in Genesis today about Jacob wrestling with God is really interesting. I wonder if there's a time when you had to wrestle with God, when you were up all night fighting with God over something. How did that end up for you? In this case, Jacob wrestles with God all night and realizes that he doesn't want revenge anymore. He wants reconciliation. He wants his brother back. But he's really afraid that his brother is not ready for reconciliation. The great news of the story is that when Esau and Jacob meet each other, they both see that the other person is ready to be reconciled. And this is an amazingly great blessing for both of them. That kind of reconciliation is continued in 2 of the New Testament lessons for this week. Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 to 40, and Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. This is where the Bible talks about the prodigal son story and the Good Samaritan story. Over and over again in the Bible, God is on the side of the downtrodden and the oppressed. God is on the side of the person that seems to be left behind. And then God is pushing for reconciliation. In God's world, there isn't someone left behind. In God's world, there isn't someone who's oppressed. In God's world, we're getting along. Except we don't live in God's world. We live in another world. We live here on earth. And there are lots and lots of rivalries and conflicts. So Pastor Brian tells us if we want to reflect the image of God instead of the image of sibling rivalry, we have to choose grace in the face of hostility. We have to choose reconciliation over rivalry. We have to choose equality over revenge. It is really tough in our world to choose grace, reconciliation, and equality. So how about you? Was there a time in your life when you had rivalry with a family member, maybe a competition at work, or a friendship that seemed to be lost? Maybe you had someone on whom you could have rightly taken out revenge, or someone took out revenge on you, and instead there was an opportunity for grace and reconciliation. Where have you seen the face of God in an enemy or in someone very different from you? How does that happen in your life? Our world right now is really divided. We spend a lot of time talking about people who are different. For me, this story came up a lot with the refugees that I met. These are folks whose own government, whose own neighbors, sometimes their own families wanted to murder them. And they ran across a border looking for safety. Safety because the place that they called home wasn't safe, and they had to go somewhere else and be a stranger to seek safety. And in such a moment, that other country had the choice to say, you can't come here. And in fact, that's what most countries say. But occasionally, someone somewhere says, you can stay here, you can be in this refugee camp, you can come to my church, you can be in our country, you can be a part of our family. And when that happens, those refugees who had been abandoned and lost and hurt and murdered sometimes by their own families and governments and neighbors and friends, they're making a new family, making new friends, proclaiming loyalty to a new government. So how did this happen in your life? share. I can't wait to hear. Thanks.